In this video, I'm going to give you a complete overview of what you can build to upgrade your base so that you can decide on how you want to approach this game. There are many different ways to get that victory. So as you already know, you start off every game and you immediately have to go collect stone and wood. That is your first thing. The next thing you need to do is get a somewhat of a defense around your base. Make sure you keep gathering stone and wood though, because you're going to need it, especially early on. Make sure your allies are always busy. A nice way to track them is to use this little blue bar that fills up to the right side here. Once it reaches the right hand side there, it goes from 0 to 1, meaning that the one that is closest to finishing its job has just finished it. The next thing you're going to need is some lapis so that you can summon some mobs, right? And you're going to do this by fighting the first piglin wave that attacks your base before heading off to the piglin tower or outpost. As soon as you have some of that, you're going to build a cobblestone golem spawner outside a piglin outpost so that you can spawn them. These are best for taking on buildings. You're probably going to need some more lapis, so you're going to go ahead and defeat the piglins around in the outpost to go ahead and get some lapis so that you can spawn in some of your cobblestone golems. All right, here's where it gets quite simple. You just spawn in the golems, and then you're going to hold down your banner view. So that on controller is going to be right trigger in, or on PC it's control, and then you're going to use focus target, and you're going to hold the button in so that you send all your units, all your mobs to attack a target until that target is destroyed. You can also bring ahead some of these, like archer plank golem things. Their whole purpose is to help kind of kill piglins around the cobblestone golems so that they don't die, because they kill the piglins a lot quicker than the golems will. It shouldn't be long until the first building gets destroyed and you can collect your first prismarine crystals. Now you can repeat this process to attack as many of these buildings as you need. In PvP, in online, there are more than one player playing usually, so in this case you'll have one or two people doing this while the other two are managing the builds and the upgrades of the base. Okay, so that is how you're going to get your prismarine crystals early on in the game nice and sufficiently. Now, the thing we're going to use next and go through is the songbook. Now, this is actually something that you're going to need to use, especially for your major buildings, to drag them down onto your hotbar, right? So on PC, you open this up by pressing R. And if we quickly go show the settings here, this is how you open it up. So on keyboard and mouse, if you scroll down, if you have different keys for some reason, we're looking for this open songbook here. It's just below the open map one. You can see here we press R. For controller or PlayStation or Xbox, I believe it's probably going to just be right stick for both of you guys. So on console, just right stick to open up this book. There are 6 resources your Allays can collect, wood and stone obviously being the two first ones, but from then on you can unlock iron, which will unlock 2 different mobs types, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But if you go for coal, you can unlock creepers, for example, and build and use like other weapon-based things. Diamond will unlock you some skeletons, amongst allowing some other things, which we'll talk about in terms of buildings, and redstones will allow you to unlock zombies and warriors. Now, if we look at the player building melodies, we obviously have the wall, which we all know how to use. We have the ramp as well, which I feel like is something that is not necessarily needed most of the time. I hardly ever keep this on my hotbar. The gate is something I feel people should use a lot more, but it is also a giant weakness for enemies to get into your base. Something that people do not use is the ice trap. It's only 125 stone. These things will literally freeze your enemies around for a few seconds, as well as allow them to take a little bit of damage. It's a great way to delay attacks that are coming from your enemies, especially towards the later end of the game. The arrow tower is the most used defense and can be buffed 3 different times to shoot faster, shoot explosive arrows, as well as shoot further distances. Make sure you know that. The scatter tower is a shorter range tower, so it only shoots things that are closer to it compared to the arrow tower, but it shoots a volley of arrows, so dealing more damage, and can also be upgraded 3 times to shoot faster, shoot explosive arrows, as well as shoot a little bit of a further distance. The Carpenter Hut is a great building that you need to conveniently make space for at like 4 different corners of your base as your base expands, because this thing will allow your building's walls, everything around it, to repair over time. So when enemies are constantly attacking you, when piglins are constantly attacking you, you want your stuff to repair off the time. The lapis flag allows you to slowly gain an income of lapis. However, I don't see it extremely necessary early on in the game. You can probably move on to it once you're around mid-late game, so that's like 20 minutes in. I definitely think you should spend your prismarine crystals on other things first. The masonry is one of my favorite buildings to build. It does require iron, and it is something you want to also place around like 4 different corners of your base. Make sure it doesn't overlap too much. You got to like really plan how you want to fit this in. What it's going to do is it's going to turn all of the wooden structures around it into stone structures. This includes towers, walls, so that when you are attacked, everything takes longer to destroy, which is great. Okay, so let's talk about the three buildings that will upgrade the towers that are in the range of these buildings. The first one is the Kaboomery, which allows all of your arrows from arrow towers in that range to have like an explosive knockback effect so that they hit multiple enemies instead of just one. The second building is your Spyglass Overlook, and this is the one that allows you to shoot a further distance for all of the scatter towers and or arrow towers within range. This one does cost diamonds though. The final arrow tower and scatter tower upgrade is the battle drum. This is one of my favorite ones. This one does cost redstone to use. It allows your arrow towers and scatter towers to shoot a lot faster, which I find is a lot more beneficial when you have all of your towers scattered closer next to each other in like a cluster base like this. If you're scared your enemy is going to set up a redstone launcher to attack your base, you're going to be using the protector tower to defend your base because it will destroy the projectiles in the air, but only for the area that this thing covers. So if your enemy is doing that, make sure you build one of these. Moving on to the other side of things, here is the redstone launcher that you can build, obviously using redstone that allows you to shoot a volley of like explosive big projectiles that take out buildings from a very far range. The last three things you can build are called power towers, and the first one is a blast tower that I recommend building if you can build it in the middle of your base. This one basically has like explosive splash damage, making sure that mobs and stuff keep being like, knocked back and also take damage across all of them. The other tower is a frost tower, which is going to freeze them, make them slower, and also allow them to take a little bit of damage over time. However, you are going to have to jump in here. This is more something you're going to use to slow the enemy. The final tower is called the stun tower, and after a few seconds, after making like a loud noise when enemies are in range, it's going to stun them in place for a few seconds. It doesn't deal damage. It's basically just to stall them so that they don't make any more progress and you can jump in and try deal with them. All right, so right at the beginning of the game, right after you deal with that first piglin outpost, the first thing you want to build is an improvement hub. You need one of these early on so that you can start using your prismarine crystals to gain upgrades, to unlock all those different buildings and different mobs that we're going to talk about soon. The first improvement we're going to look at here is the Gather Iron improvement, which allows you to use your Allays to finally gather iron. But you do unlock a few different things with this. You unlock two different unit types, namely the Grindstone Golem Spawner, which is good against ranged units, since they're able to stun units that they're in range of in melee. And then you also get the Mossy Golem Spawner, which will clear any debuffs your mobs have, as well as heal them over time, which is fantastic. You should also note that you need iron to unlock the Masonry, as well as the Protector Tower that we just talked about. The next improvement is the Gather Redstone, which will unlock your capability to harvest redstone with your Allays. It will also unlock two mob types, namely the Zombie, which is great in melee, very hard to kill, and will often kill you if you try to fight it without anything that is shooting it from far away. And if you have both iron as well as redstone, you can use the Warrior Spawner, which is a really strong warrior unit that is great at fighting piglins and other mobs. You will also need redstone for the redstone launcher as well as the battle drums. Now, the next improvement you can get is the Gather Diamonds. It allows you to harvest diamonds in the world. It also unlocks the skeleton unit, which is amazing because they can shoot from so far, and if you use these to target other players, will often kill them really, really easily. Diamonds are also needed for the Frost Tower as well as the Spyglass Overlook so that you can get that extended range. The next improvement you can build is the Gather Coal, and this is the final one of unlocking all the resources. Coal can be found in the world, obviously, and you can use your Allays to harvest it now after building this, and you will need this resource to unlock creepers. Now, creepers, as you can imagine, are great at blowing up buildings and walls, but also you should know when they blow up, they despawn, so make sure you use them on the right stuff. You will also need coal to build a scatter tower, the Kaboomery, as well as the stun tower. The next few improvements are going to be ones that increase your army size and how easy it is to gather resources. The first one is Abundant Allays, allows you to have an extra building alley and an extra gathering alley, and you can just keep building these so that you can have a ton of them, which is fantastic, so that you can bring in resources a whole lot quicker so that you can build everything else. I recommend focusing on this one first. You should also keep an eye out on your LA storage in case you find yourself always at the cap for wood, stone, lapis, or prismarine crystals. You will need to build more of these so that you can increase this holding space that you have of those other ones. However, if you want to increase the cap of like diamonds, iron, coal, or redstone, you need to build more of the gather versions of those to improve how many you can hold there. Once you find yourself running out of space for mobs, or like you're not allowed to have as many mobs, you want to look at the improvement Flames of Creation to allow you to have extra 20 units that you can make across your team. This goes up to a total of 100. So you can build this about 4 times. Obviously, coupled with that, you're going to want the improvement banner, which allows you to carry or have extra 10 units follow you around. So if you want as many units following you, you're going to have to build this building. The more of these you build, the more plus 10 units you're allowed to have follow you around the map. This next improvement can be a waste of resources, especially prismarine crystals. It's building the power towers. It unlocks the capability of building the frost tower, the stun tower, and the blast tower. However, if you don't plan on actually building the towers, building this improvement is a waste of time, and you should rather upgrade your army as well as your Allays. The final improvement is for building the firsts, and these are like really strong hero kind of mobs that will do a variety of different things. There are 4 different types of them. The first one is the First of Brick Spawner, which basically allows to shield your enemies from ranged attacks. So anything shooting arrows or towers, it's going to make those null. As you can tell, you will need a ton of iron to unlock this one. The next one is First of Oak, which does long-range fire attacks and needs diamonds to summon. The next one is the First of Diorite. Now you're going to need coal to get this one to spawn, and this one will summon little minions to fight alongside it. And lastly, you have probably the best one here for breaching into enemies' bases, the First of Stone. Redstone is required to build this, and it will throw large rocks that destroy enemy structures or deal a ton of damage to them. My final words would be, make sure your base has enough space for these different things, and make sure you pick out which ones you want to focus on first. You can't really unlock all the different mob types and then hope to just have them as an option. You want to rather spend your resources wisely so that you can correctly get the right army, the right buffs, the right strength for your base without having to go harvest a bunch of resources that you're going to use for things that aren't even, applicable to what you're trying to do. So have a look at everything and build what you want to upgrade first. I hope you guys found this video helpful, and thank you so much for watching.